Hey, this is Brian Germain, and I'm getting ready to do a jump. I'm in what appears to be Hawaii in a hot air balloon. Let's look over here. So we've got a landing area way down on the beach. So that's our goal, is to land on the beach. But we're pretty far up, like up the valley. And it's actually quite steep. From this altitude, it might be a little hard to see because things kind of flatten. But you can fly some lines. So we could go to the left, right? So this area here is pretty good. You can ride down that hill on a left traverse, play in the sunlight. Gets a little dark over the corner there. It's just, I don't know, I like to fly down the light. It's more fun for me. And take a look at that, right? So there's like a waterfall. There's a road up there. I wonder if I can make it to the road. I mean, if I exited facing this way. Well, what do you think? I mean, it is a virtual environment. It's not going to hurt. So what the heck? Let's do it. I'm going to go out towards the horizon, right? With a base jump, you should always look out. Balloon jump, go head low if you look down. If you look down, you can go on your back, and on your back is a parachute, which means that the deployment's likely to go weird. You never know where it's going to go. So I need to look out there towards the horizon. And I'm going to check my handles, check everything that needs to be checked. I'm going to breathe and relax my feet under my body. I'm going to go that way towards the horizon. Ready, set, go. And pulling. I pulled on my BOC. You can do that, or the visible handle. Grabbing the toggles. Obviously, on a base jump, you'd want to do that pretty quick. Get ready for the rears, but popping toggles is really what it's about. Can I make it to the road? What do you think? So watch the destination point. Is it rising or sinking? Maybe. Maybe I could just barely make it to the road. I could, but I'm not going to. I'm going to look at this big, beautiful mountain. This is awesome. Let's fly down the hill. I'm going to traverse to the right a little bit. Let's just enjoy the scenery. Enjoy the experience of making micro manipulations to your control inputs, and not in a chaotic way, right? Smooth, so you can see the results of what you do, right? So there's obviously keeping on a heading. If it looks like you're going to land, turn down the hill, let it to left, like that. There you go. And let's go around this corner here. That's good fun. There's a place, I think it's in Wales, that you can speed ride a very similar knoll. Let's go over here to the edge of the light and curve it back. And then let's go around this corner here and then cut it back. Yeah, and I'm going to add a little bit of tap on the brakes. Now, obviously you want to keep your speed up when you're doing this kind of stuff. And you don't want to do it with toggles if you're actually mountain flying. You want to be on your harness and your rears and sometimes even your fronts. But you want to keep that canopy lit up with internal pressurization and high drag values at high speed so that you don't take a collapse when you hit some rough air. Right? It is the mountains, for real. So keep your air speed high. Looking where you're going. If you see where you're going is rising, turn downhill. And keep it going down the mountain. Keeping an eye at the horizon there, right? I have a sight picture every once in a while on my left-hand traverses. I can get an eye on my intended landing spot way down at the beach. So you turn away from the mountain if you lose speed, right? So at the end of that turn, I hit both brakes and I lost some speed. And so if you do lose speed, you want to nose her down, but you want to do that when you're facing down the hill. So hitting the brakes, I'm just sort of playing with what does what here, like in the virtual environment. You say, well, how is this going to help me? Because it's not the same. Well, every parachute is different. It's a process of adaptation to be a skillful pilot, learning how to work it all, right? Work all the canopies. So I'm going to play around with the brakes. If my hands are out in front of me like this, you obviously in the VR environment doesn't matter that much, but you're also making habits. And if you have your hands in front of you all the time, you get tired, and then you can go to sort of, you get pushed into the back seat, right? The riser, the risers are all in front of you now. And so that means that the parachute system is set up for a butt strike landing because your feet get thrown in front of you. So if you push your hips back, and when you flare, you have your hands back behind you. I say if you can see your hands, right, steering like that, if you can see your hands, then you're really, set up for a butt landing, which, when you're up high, do what you want. But when you're landing, I don't recommend pushing them in front unless you're doing a downwind or butt slide, one butt cheek ideally. And that's a very graceful process if you do it right, with your toes pointed forward and your heels taking the initial contact, keeping your butt off the ground as long as you can, right, so that your legs do the work. So I'm heading to the beach, and then you go, all right, well, can I make it? So I'm riding in full flight right now, but what if I was to play with the amount of brakes or the amount of rears, right? So if I'm in a tailwind situation, I probably need the brakes. I probably want to fly some brakes. This doesn't have rear risers in the simulation, but I would try rears, especially if I'm off the wind line. I'm going to try rears right away. That'll be my first choice. Facing into the wind, I'm going to go to rears because I know that brakes, as I'm matching my vector against the wind vector, I'm going to really lose so much ground speed of the parachute that it's going to negate any possible gains from being in deep brakes. So if I'm rear risering, I'm going to want to hold a position that is the right amount, which is a little more than halfway from no input to full stall on a rear riser, sort of smooth application rear riser stall. You find that stall point, and then you let it back up, and dampen the surge with the reapplying of those rears as the canopy starts to shoot in front of you. That's not true for all vehicles. Paragliders, apparently it's not a great idea, but on parachutes, it seems to stop the surge and get your loading back. So once you attain that rear riser stall, and you know where halfway is, you can take that pose, if you will, where you're maybe spreading the rears or pulling in. Try that. Some canopies, apparently they're more stable, real tiny ones, but most of them you spread them out wide, like an eagle gliding, and you try to get small in your body posture, as small as you can. Reduce that body drag. So right now I'm playing with the brakes because it's all I have, right? So I'm sort of a little more, a little less. How much is too much? And you'll find even in the simulation, wow, that's pretty, I can go too deep in the brakes and lose glide ratio. So down around 3/4 or so. But just above 3/4, somewhere in that zone, you'll find that you get pretty good glide. This is a no wind scenario, so you should definitely change wind conditions and try different things. That's pretty, huh? Like in the real thing, when you're up there, don't forget to take those moments, that emotional snapshot, so that you can remember the feeling the rest of your life. So I'm looking around not only to take in the appreciation experience, but I also want to see if I'm going to make it. And if I'm not going to make it, where would I go? Right? All the way home. Don't wait until you're at 200 feet to make that new choice. When you finally accept the fact that you're not landing in, keep selecting possible landing areas all along, right? And sometimes they're behind you. So keep that in mind. Where do I have access to roads? Where do I have access to wide open space without power lines? Is there a bull in that field? So it looks like I'm going to be able to make it all the way to the beach. Can you believe that? Right? If you have faith and you have a good model, which is why you have the faith, you can do some pretty amazing things in this world if you trust it, right? You trust the model that you know is right. It's elaborate and correct. Let's bend it a little bit towards the parallel. There you go, parallel to the beach. Looking where you're going, parachute over your head, bump those brakes all the way, finish it. Yes. Hey, I even got coins. Well, how cool is that? So I made it all the way to the beach. So this is a pretty impressive long spot jump. But that's part of being a canopy pilot. Your spot is not always perfect, but you have to be a perfect canopy pilot on every jump. I'm Brian Germain, and thank you for joining.